Hello strategy gaming enthusiasts, my name is AlzaboHD. CK3 is about to experience the largest update ever in its 5-year history, and in today's massive video, we are going to look at everything we know about patch 1.17 and the upcoming All Under Heaven DLC. We will cover the most important improvements that are coming later this year, sourcing the material from the massive library of developer diaries posted by Paradox Interactive. With easily more than 100 new nations, a map increase so large it almost doubles the in-game area, at least 6 new government forms, new religions, new cultures, and new changes to the old world map, it's no exaggeration to say that All Under Heaven is basically Crusader Kings 4. Most of the background footage recorded for this video is with the mod Oriental Empires by Chill Shadow and is not reflective of the actual update, but all screenshots and information provided are considered accurate with what we have available from Paradox themselves. Without further ado, let's chew through the major general changes about to be added in patch 1.17. By far the largest change added with the All Under Heaven DLC and free 1.17 patch is the addition of East and Southeast Asia, along with more playable polities in Eastern Africa. Everything from China, Korea, Japan, Siberia, Zanzibar, and all of Southeast Asia will be added to CK3, and this represents hundreds if not thousands of new counties, cultures, kingdoms, religions, and more across the 3 bookmark starting dates. We'll dive into these with more depth in the later chapters, but suffice to say these regions represent about 30 to 40% more map and almost doubles the size of the playable game area. This isn't just quantity either, as quality of the map is set to upgrade across the board, and the second largest change is the addition of new terrain generation. Previous iterations of CK3 were painted by hand, and in 1.17 Paradox has opted to use Gaia to improve the map's graphics and performance. Lighting and shadows have received a much-needed overhaul. You'll be able to zoom in even closer to the map and your holdings, and there'll be a brand new terrain map mode, which will allow you to see all of this in glorious HD. Mountains are more mountainy, water is more watery, and the addition of cloud cover visible on the map makes everything feel more realistic. These changes will make the CK3 map arguably the best graphically out of all Paradox titles thus released, and there will also be a new paper map style to accompany the launch of this DLC. This All Under Heaven paper map renders the world in an Asian style, complete with figures from Chinese and Japanese mythology, and can be enabled like other DLC styles through the menu for your next Eastern campaign. In order to reflect the might and power of the Chinese polity, the new update will also add a government tier above Empire in the form of hegemony. Effectively, this means we will have counties, duchies, kingdoms, empires, and now hegemonies, which are the highest government tier attainable in CK3. This government tier applies to China for all starting dates and can be unlocked for India and Rome if you can unite all of their lands and empire-level titles. Though there is no current way to unlock this rank for other regions of the world, the wording of the Sev diary implies that it might be possible at a later point, though this is speculation. In addition, there are at least 6 new government forms added to this update, and are unique for each area added in Asia. We'll dive into the specifics later in this video, but to briefly summarize, the Celestial Government is an administrative type of realm unique to China. Meritocratic is similar but available to other East Asian nations like Korea. Rutsuryo and Soryo, I don't know how to pronounce these, are governments available to Japan. Mandala is a form unique to Southeast Asian Dharmic nations, and Wanua is a sea-based government available to the tribal states like the Philippines and the Papuans. The final general changes added in 1.17 are the addition of Great Projects, Natural Disasters, and the Silk Road. Great Projects appear to be unique to separate cultures, with China cited as being able to create the Great Wall or the Grand Canals, and Mandala governments being able to create a temple complex centered around their capital. Various natural disasters will tie into the Great Project mechanic and create recurring, quote, situations where your realm and regional neighbors can pool resources to aid in the recovery process. Rather than be a punishing form of RNG, these disasters can be, quote, overcome and present you with unique opportunities and benefits to rebuilding the area to be more prosperous. Lastly, the Silk Road will also make an appearance, and while trade is not yet redesigned, the road itself will be visible on map and confer economic bonuses as long as China is stable. Western rulers will also be able to travel to the various entrepôts along the Silk Road for bonuses such as technology and Chinese innovations. With the major general changes out of the way, let's dive into the meat of each region, starting with the old world of Europe and Africa. At the moment, we only have two sources for this region. The first, a global map from 1066 AD, and another snippet of a larger map from 867. Minor changes to Europe include the renaming of the Totorobo Cumans to just regular Cumans, the Hassanid Karluks to just plain Karluks, and the degradification of Great Liao, which now seems to be a collection of Little Liao lands. The most substantial change to the Old World is in Africa, in an area that is currently furnished with a CK3 tablecloth. In the current version of the game, nothing is below the Horn of Africa, but the spoiled image from the dev diaries appears to show 9 new polities below Mogadishu, stretching from Somalia to the island of Zanzibar. The new paper map style image reveal shows the northern of these provinces in more definition, but the island of Zanzibar is unmistakable in the more blurry 1066 revealed image, suggesting that Kenya and the coastal countries in between will be added to the Old World and make for a more dynamic area. Achievements like Mother of Us All will only get harder as Paradox adds more African provinces in the future, so it might be a good idea to secure this and the other Conquer the World type achievements, as Asia will add another 30 to 40% map area to your campaign. You can't spell campaign without pain, and you can relieve mine and support AlzaboHD for free by liking and subscribing to this video. These videos take an incredible amount of time to record, script, research, edit, and project onto the internet, and you can support me by pre-ordering EU5 with the link on screen and below, or by becoming a channel member via YouTube or a patron on my Patreon page. Financial support allows me to continue creating content, features you in the credits at the end of the video, and will offer more benefits coming soon. That said, it's time to turn our attention to Asia, and specifically China, which contains the largest amount of new content in 1.17. The celestial hegemony of Zhonghua, aka China, will be the most dense, most populated, and most mechanically complicated country in all of CK3, and it's only fitting that we dive deep into the details of everything that will be added under heaven. Most importantly, China is a hegemony, the largest and strongest level government in-game, and above the previously most powerful Empire-level titles. As the only hegemony in-game, China is the center of the world's most complex civilization, and as such is represented in-game with the new government form Celestial Government. In a similar vein to the Byzantine bureaucratic empire, Celestial China is an administrative realm type with house heads, governors, influence, and positions, though in this case influence is called merit, and there are dozens of mechanics that make it more mechanically complex than those already seen in Eastern Rome. From the information we have available, the Celestial Government of China will be by far the most complex in all of CK3. There are ministries of ministries and ministers of ministers, and the entire thing seems like a chapter from Kafka, or The Fun of Being a Foreigner in France, but we'll try to make it as easy to understand as possible. The hereditary Chinese emperor assigns his ministers based on their merit, which is a type of score representing the competency of a character in the Celestial Government. You can increase your merit by attending and succeeding in imperial examinations from the age of 6 and older, and your intelligence and Confucian piety largely influences the result, though you can use trickery to cheat your way to the top of the hukou. With a high enough merit, your characters can be rewarded with landless administrator titles, and if you are already landed, you can pass these examinations to help your fellow family members for their own benefit. There are many positions that you can attain through these examinations, with the highest being the Grand Chancellor, equivalent to the Prime Minister, and highest position below the Emperor himself, the Imperial Censor, who can investigate corruption and is basically a spy master on steroids, all the way down to the various ministers and ministries. While these might seem similar at first to traditional court positions, these ministers have far more power and are awarded with funds in the form of treasury, a mechanic we will explore later in this chapter. And if you kowtow hard enough, you might even attain the favor of the Emperor to become exceptionally wealthy. While the aforementioned positions are of a civilian nature, you can also undertake a military career and be assigned to martial ministries and even military governorships based upon your merit. Chinese provinces, known as circuits, are divided into two larger province types, military and civilian, with civilian circuits specializing in production and military governorships possessing men-at-arms, and administering these circuits gives you extra merit to climb the proverbial career ladder. Civilian circuits grant development growth and economic bonuses, and range in complexity from the lowly standard administrator to the highly coveted metropolitan minister. Similarly, the military circuits ruled by martial ministers trade development growth for access to men-at-arms, levies, and defensive bonuses, and at the moment we only know of the two types shown on screen. It should be stated that both civilian and military circuits possess special variants that are locked behind dynastic cycles, with the metropolitan administration available only in the advancement era, and the protectorate administration only available in the expansion era. Eras and dynastic cycles are unique to celestial China and represent the circular rise and fall of dynasties and the Emperor's Mandate of Heaven. Depending on when you start your campaign, China will be in one of three dynastic cycles broadly categorized into stable, unstable, and chaotic eras. Similar to the struggle in Iberia or intermezzo in Iran, these various eras change the laws that can be enacted, allow new circuit types, change interactions within and outside of China, allow the creation of great projects, and even grant new casus bellis depending on how united or fragmented China is at any given point in time. Within these larger eras are various subtypes like advancement and expansion for the stable era, instability and conquest for the unstable era, and chaos for the blood god era. You can influence these eras to last longer or spin the wheel of fortune by embarking on actions known as catalysts in a similar way to the Spain and Iranian DLCs. Unique to All Under Heaven, you can also employ political movements, which are a form of allegiance that range from supporting the emperor, seeking military expansion, preferring economic advancement, or resisting reform and preserving the status quo. You'll be able to band together with other like-minded ministers and leaders to influence the wheel and cycle of China, and so far this is all rather clear. What isn't as clear to me, AlzaboHD, is the matter of the Chinese treasury. I don't have an economics degree, so perhaps you'll understand better than me, but from what I can tell, the ministers and meritocratically appointed governors are rewarded not in ducats, but in salaries, a unique mechanic exclusive to the celestial and potentially meritocratic governments. All money earned by governors is sent upwards to the emperor and then doled out to the various ministers as a salary, which can be spent however they please. The developers have kindly provided us liberal arts degree enthusiasts a graphic to better understand this mechanic, but in simple terms, all Chinese vassals collect taxes that are then sent to the emperor. The emperor then converts this vassal income into treasury, a new resource that represents liquid assets that can only be spent on government investments, and holds a portion dedicated to himself, and the remainder of the treasury is sent downwards to the appointed ministers and various officials. Treasury as a resource can be spent on all government assets, such as buildings, military units, and so forth, but cannot be spent on private matters like your activities and estates, which you'll still have to use your own gold for. Effectively, this means that gaining your own gold in a celestial government will be more difficult than the methods seen in feudal realms, but this wouldn't be China if there wasn't corruption, and you'll be able to skim treasury for yourself using schemes and gain gold through your estates, among other things. China is massive, and we could easily have made this section into a standalone video, but suffice to say that whether you're within or without the celestial realm, known as the Middle Kingdom of world civilization, you'll either bend the knee voluntarily or by force, as this heavenly hegemony will be the most powerful in all of CK3. Annyeonghaseyo, and welcome to Korea, an area we know comparatively little about thus far, but certainly worthy of its own spicy section. In the earliest 867 starting date, Korea is itself divided among the three kingdoms of Silla, Baekje, and Goguryeo. If you're an 867 enthusiast, you can unify the three kingdoms via the Unite the Hamsukuk decision, which gives a heroic legend seed and creates an empire-tier unified kingdom title, named either Samhan or Goryeo, depending on your ruler's culture. Once unified in this way, Korea receives the Yongsun Throne, a unique primogeniture kingdom tier title similar to the Chrysanthemum Throne of Japan, which we will cover in our next chapter. This decision also increases cultural acceptance between all Korean subcultures to allow you to create a unified Korean state. Lastly, your peninsular polity will gain an exclusive acclamation-style succession law, which weights the ruling Yongsan title holder above other contenders, allowing you to infiltrate the state with a powerful noble family, as has happened in our own timeline. Administratively speaking, Korea is a meritocratic government, similar but not identical to the neighboring Chinese celestial government. We don't have all the details, but what we know so far is that this government type exists in and forms more commonly for administrative realms that border the Chinese hegemony and allow their states to claim the mandate for heaven for themselves. They possess many of the same features seen in the Chinese celestial chapter, but are prevented from holding imperial examinations at the highest tier available. There are 2 additional screenshots for the Korean map provided for both the 1066 and 1178 starting date, and both show what appears to be a new religion in the form of the Gyo faith. This likely represents Korean paganism known today as Dongjeongism, and will likely see unique mechanics, special holy sites, and potentially the possibility to reform it in a custom way like the Basque native religion seen in Fate of Iberia. Ultimately, Korea will be a fantastic choice for playing tall, as their mountains form a natural defensive position, and perhaps we will see unique cultural innovations like the turtle ship, though this is speculation. Across the sea lies the island nation of Japan, land of the rising sun, and one of the most unique areas to be added in All Under Heaven. Most of Japan in each starting date is occupied by the Yamato cultured Japanese people and their Yamato dynasty emperor, though there are Amishi and Ainu tribes to the north, and Ryokan tribes in Okinawa and Amami to the south. During CK3's time period, Japan was largely a peaceful and bureaucratic state, and this is represented by their 2 unique government forms of Soryo and Ritsuryo, with both pledging allegiance to the nominal emperor known as the Tenno, though Soryo vassals are de facto autonomous and a liability to the Japanese monarchy if not dealt with swiftly. In the earlier 867 and 1066 starting dates, Ritsuryo vassals akin to noble governor families encompass the entire Japanese archipelago, but in 1178, Soryo vassals, similar to Sengoku Jidai daimyo, begin to make an appearance. Ritsuryo realms are similar to administrative, meritocratic, and celestial governments, but differ in that their governors, known as kokushi, rule over single counties, cannot normally form duchies or kingdoms, and have limited expansion opportunities. Instead, Ritsuryo rulers can gain power by landing their dynasty members or by attempting to become elected as kampaku, or regent to the emperor, by expending influence in a similar manner to the acclamation succession of Byzantium. Soryo rulers, on the other hand, are more similar to feudal rulers of other countries, are stronger militarily, and can annex land and form titles. Even adopting this government form is a criminal act in medieval Japan and will make you a target to the kampaku and kokushi, but luckily will give you the ability to hire mounted samurai men-at-arms and raise larger armies to claim Japan as a potential shogun ruler. Both of these government forms have access to manors to increase your dynasty's power base, and this arguably makes Soryo an objective upgrade to other feudal government forms. Japanese houses can increase their power through building up their manors or by investing their prestige into house aspirations, a mechanic similar to house powers seen in Byzantium. These aspirations grant advantages that range from bureaucratic bonuses to governor efficiency and candidate score, ceremonial bonuses that grant prestige and renown, and martial modifiers that improve your military and the strength of your characters. The various houses compete for appointments and political power, and can form friendship and rivalries with other dynasties using a new mechanic called blocks. This mechanic is a military alliance that follows the head of one house and is similar to step confederations, and members within a house block automatically join all wars of their leader, leading to larger-scale waifu warfare. The actual Emperor of Japan wields negligible power, and the actual strength behind the throne is in his regent known as Kampaku. As covered earlier, Ritsuryo rulers can expend influence to become elected to this supremely powerful regent position, though unlike in Byzantium, marriage ties with the imperial family and other weights influence this succession. If you fancy force over diplomacy, you can adopt a Soryo government form and take the throne through warfare, and if you do, you'll gain access to powerful imperial policy laws. All emperors, be them Kampaku, Shogun, or Tenno, have access to these laws, and one we know about is the Imperial Pacification Policy, which allows you to declare external wars and grants access to unique CBs. As these policies affect all rulers under the Japanese imperial banner, they are a strong method to control your subjects, and it certainly seems that Japan will possess one of the most centralized governments in-game, given the content of these developer diaries. We've saved the best region for last, if you define such a region by its presence of Papua New Guinea like we do on AlzaboHD. New ethnicities, cultures, religions, and government forms fill out this far-flung region, and for those seeking fresh finery, the newly added attire and dermal drip will be sure to satisfy you. Everything from the peninsular polities of Angkor, Burma, and Cham to the islands of Indonesia, Malaysia, and Papua are included, and feature an entire host of new duchies, kingdoms, and empires that you can form in all under heaven. The majority of these polities profess dharmic faiths, and those situated on the peninsula and western islands boast the unique mandala government form, which is centered around a cult of personality and piety. Simply speaking, mandala governments are centered around god kings known as Devarajas, essentially deity rulers of dharmic faiths with a government form that starts off weaker than feudal or clan governments, but has the potential to snowball in power and piety. These polities use piety as a primary resource for many of their mechanics, and unlock the 3 additional levels of devotion of divine, demigod, and godlike. These new devotion levels can only be attained over the course of several generations, with the highest levels remaining locked until you attain the previous tier with a mandala ruler in your dynasty. While these reincarnated levels of piety appear to be locked to mandala and thus dharmic faiths at campaign start, the addition of the 3 new tiered logos in other faiths implies that we might see monotheistic mandalas through some form of silly shenanigans. Regardless of your faith, all mandala governments are anchored around a temple citadel and capital temple complex, which is a form of great project exclusive to their state. Of course, a temple is useless without first choosing your mandala aspect, and you have 4 to choose from that radically change the playstyle of your polity. Peaceful monk monarchs can choose between creation for construction and child-based bonuses, and serenity, which appears to make the befriending mechanic actually useful. But if you want to burn everything down, destruction grants extra casus bellis and passes through combat, while trickery grants you dirty schemes and will likely be weak or really OP, depending on how strong the disbelieve mandala mechanic ends up at release. Central to all mandala governments is the concept of radiance, or how you compare as a god king to the other Kool-Aid cult leaders that surround you. If you radiate pure Buddha energy, you'll find that your neighbors will more readily accept offers of tributization and impact the way they view your god king, with subjects of other states even potentially joining yours if you shine bright like a Devaraja diamond. New laws unique to this government form allow dharmic decrees, and while we don't have information about what these actually do, we can choose from 3 in the form of prosperity, expansion, or reverence. What we do know is that mandala governments rise and fall through their tributary networks, rendering them a rather decentralized form of religious rulership. Since every mandala state has a tiny domain limit and can only hold a limited amount of land, they rely on tributaries for power projection, and you can attain them through warfare, diplomatic means, and various events. These tributaries pay their mandala rulers in various forms through tribute missions, and can grant gold, concubines, and even eunuchs, among other things. Similarly, you can use your tributaries to build up your temple complexes and great works, but be careful not to upset them, as these subjects are prone to swapping around if you aren't as radiant as a twilight vampire in broad daylight. By far my favorite addition to Southeast Asia are the isolated islands off the coast of the Malay Peninsula, together forming the maritime and barter-based Wanua tribal governments. Little information is available for the medieval history of what is today Borneo, the Spice Islands, Papua New Guinea, and the Philippines, but what we do know is that they love to trade bananas and coconuts. Pivotal to these Wanua Island tribes is the mechanic of bartering, which is a resource and primitive trade mechanic exclusive to this region, and is the primary method for Wanua characters to earn gold, as bartering is spent on their military and men-at-arms, amongst other things. These tribal Wanuans can raise peaceful bartering armies that can then be sent to barter with other characters on the map, and when they arrive in a barony with loot, bartering armies exchange their barter goods for that barony's loot, directly increasing the province's development and granting the army owner gold for the loot exchanged. Bartering missions are inherently friendly, though raiding armies will still appear as hostile, and care should be made to avoid defeat, as any raiding army can steal your bartered booty. If you prefer an economy of conventional currency and cultists, you can modernize any Wanua government to Mandala rule, as long as you attained absolute tribal authority, embraced a dharmic or Eastern religion, and are an independent polity. It is not an understatement to say that All Under Heaven is by far the largest and most dense CK3 update and DLC to date, and while everything looks incredible, I'd like to briefly cover some personal thoughts and predictions about the update. The developers have already addressed concerns about the impact of doubling the map size on performance, and quote, are aware of potential performance difficulties, but are also quote, working hard on it just as much as the rest of the expansion. We can connect the dots here with their work on the new graphic and terrain engine that will add, quote, optional settings for some of the larger changes that impact performance, which thus far appear to be optional cloud shadows and other shader-based changes. My prediction is that the reworked terrain engine was designed explicitly to streamline performance, as the hand-drawn cells were modernized and will likely load more quickly than previous iterations. Of course, adding in thousands of new characters, hundreds of new nations, and all of the assorted machinations of adding an entire continent will likely impact performance on lower-end computers, but thankfully we will inevitably see Steam Workshop mods to boost FPS as they are already available. Personally speaking, I'm really looking forward to the future of travel, migration, and Exodus campaigns with the addition of Asia. On this channel, we've already traveled from Iceland to India, and from Xinjiang to Rome, and Rome to Xinjiang, but going to or from East or Southeast Asia has never been a possibility without mods until this update. I'm already brainstorming the wacky campaigns that will become possible, and you can expect things like Papua to Papal States, or Yugoslavia to Japanese Emperor on AlzaboHD, once All Under Heaven is under my Steam library. What do you think about CK3's largest update, and what nations are you looking forward to playing? Be sure to let me know in the comment box below, and if you haven't done so already, please support me for free by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. If you have some silk or jade to spare, consider becoming a channel member or by joining my Patreon, which grants you benefits like a warm fuzzy feeling, early access to future videos, upcoming mystery perks, and of course your name in the credits. Population, you.